you get a call, hey, we've got this project, we want original score. Then what happens? Then what do you do?
You usually meet with them, or whether it's in person or over Skype or even just detailed emails. Usually it's in person. You'll screen the film, watch it with them, and do a spotting session, which means you talk through, here's where we want music, here's where we don't, here's what we want it to sound like, and they'll generally give you stems. Here's a quick time of each reel, and then a split stems of dialogue, sound effects, temp music, so that as you're going, you can turn on the dial, listen to what you're doing, how it plays with the scene and all that. So they give you all those materials, whether it's on a server or downloading from a Dropbox or something. So they send you all that.
And somewhere here you talk money.
Usually, yes. Well,
that should be one of
sometimes
the first
no, but
things.
yes. Yeah, usually the money is talked about and all of that, or the rate. Like if you're working for, a lot of times, kind of most of what we do is we work for other composers, writing additional music, and so they're the ones dealing with the production side of things and the people and the business side. And so working under them, it's the same thing. They'll send us the materials and tell us what has been directed to do, and then the rate that the composer will be paying you. That's discussed, and then and you start working. You start working, and then you send. So
you say working. What's the first thing you do?
First thing we do is map out the tempo.
Well, first I'll watch the scene over and over again and get the whole idea of it. Well, I'll watch it with the temp score in there, maybe a couple times, and then, okay, that's what they want. That's the idea of what they want, and then I'll shut the temp off and watch it again several times, and try to just feel what the scene's trying to say, and then sort of start thinking about, and okay, now how does that feeling translate into music, while keeping in mind what the temp is, because you got to please that. And and then, like you said, start mapping it out, where you find a general tempo that feels right.
Tempo is the first thing.
That's
to figure out how fast or slow it should
probably
be.
the most important thing, because it gives the energy that's happening.
How do you find, tempo, that's like saying, oh, well, we know the heading for our ship based on the orange we had today. Right. You're like, what? How do you find tempo from visual media?
It's tricky. I don't know how to put it into words. It's something that's, I think, when you do it enough and you tell enough stories, it starts to kind of become second nature. You don't necessarily, it's not something you're thinking about, but you're feeling it. You watch it and it's like, what does this really feel?
My process, I think is, and I've thought about this before, is I feel like it's, from having seen so many films and watched just a lot of media over my lifetime, it's like other things will come to mind, similar things will come to mind, and hopefully they're from successful films or good quality media. Things will come to mind like, I'm hearing, this reminds me of this thing, and it was kind of here, or it was like, whatever it might be, it might come to mind, and it's like, that works. I think that works. It just, from doing enough of it, your brain will recall something and just give you an idea kind of instinctually.
Usually, 90% of the time, I think I go with my first instinct, because I think that's usually the most accurate, but oftentimes it's worth thinking about other options, like, okay, I could do that, but what if I played it the opposite? What if I played against it? And experiment with that, and it's a lot of trial and error.
A lot of times you're just tired, or you've been doing it for weeks or whatever, and you're just, I don't know what's best. I don't know what my instinct is. I don't know. You just have to put something down. And so maybe that is instinct. But a lot of times it works. It really works. Just putting something, I don't know what it is. I'm just going to start putting notes in kind of at random. And then you go back and you're like, okay, I can change that. I can tweak this. And okay, now it's starting to work. Okay, now I see what I can do with it. Then you start going. But at the initial thing is like, I have no idea.
And you're doing that work without having to consult the director. In fact, you only send stuff back to the director once you have a mock-up.
Yes. So once you finalize a section, each section is divided up into cues. So once you have a cue done, or several, and you feel like, okay, this is where it's heading, you send that off and either meet with them in person and show it to them, or send it to them. You can send them just like an isolated audio file that maybe has the start time listed in it, so they can drop it in themselves, or an isolated QuickTime where you've mixed it in and you have it ducked down for audio, for dialogue and stuff. So it's your appropriate mix.
How you want them to hear it.
Yeah, how you'd like them to hear it.
Because if they just have it on their own, they might be playing it too loud and think it's obtrusive when it's not. They're just playing it.
The way we like to work, we like to do the QuickTime thing and send it to them and let them digest it on their own. I do not enjoy the process of sitting with the director in person, and it's nerve-wracking. It's so and you just feel judged, even if they're not, even if their attitudes are perfectly pleasant. It's still, you just feel like you're auditioning. I mean, a film composer's life always feels like you're auditioning. You always feel like you're being judged.
When you're sitting right there with a group of people and they're listening to it while you're there, it almost feels like they have more of a reason to be critical in that moment, because it's like you're there and they want to like make some comment and make it like they're in charge and stuff. But I don't know, I kind of feel like when they're just digesting it on their own, there's kind of a way, they don't have anything to prove in that moment, and they can live with it for a while, and then by the time it gets back to you, it's not quite as criticized, because so much of the criticism with these like studio executives, they're non-creative people, but they want to justify their position, so they just throw in their 2 cents, even though it's just a ego stroke to them, and it can throw a complete wrench in the whole thing for the composers and the whole team of music people who then have to go back and change stuff for no particular
They tend to
reason.
do it to the whole post-production process.
Exactly.
It's
I'm
not
sure
just composers.
Right, for sure. Just insane.
So where in this process, so you've got the temp, you've listened to it, you've watched it a bunch of times, you watched the scene a bunch of times, you got a tempo map. Somewhere in here you've made themes if it's required, if it's wanted. And then do you both just make a piano sketch, or do you just write and start blocking things out? How do you do it?
It depends. Sometimes I will start with just piano to get raw material out. If it's a theme, especially if I'm composing thematic material, I'll sketch that out just in a rudimentary piano part, and then go back and fill that in, translate it into the orchestra. But sometimes if it's non-thematic stuff and it's just very underscorey kind of background support or whatever, I'll just start experimenting with the texture. And sure. put in one thing and then add a thing and add a thing until it's like, okay, this feels right.
Even if it's for yourself.